Thank you very much. Enjoy the show.
Stuff down from Kansas City, she's sprinkling sparkles of you. Courtroom soap operas and Jeopardy. Must look good. To watch you decide to share. First got the kicks off getting older. Nine who knows many a trick. Just looking good. Milk, love, nowhere. Watch you decide to share. This is Tripoli.
I'll just say as an older person, the fear that even commercial things in nowadays, I mean, the society Thank you. All right. Ready?
Yeah, come here, my heart come down, yeah, push out, love, song, out, sky, I know it's going
I feel so important because every time I get close to the stage, the music goes off and it gets really quiet. Like when I have to sing matters, it does. You know, I couldn't think of a good ending for that joke. But I'll tell you what I can't think of a good beginning. Welcome to the March! Thank you all for coming up tonight. It still feels new and fresh that there are people in the theater. It just, are they really? We're not on Zoom? Well, we are on Zoom, but we're not here on Zoom. So thank you so much for coming to the March. We're here for my favorite night of the week of the March, Monday Night March. People try out new material. People rework old material. You never know what you're going to see here, and it's always cool. We have three performers tonight. We have Carlos. I didn't ask you if I say it right. Carlos Garvira. If I messed it up, my apologies, Carlos. E.G. Phillips and Sally Love. I get the order all wrong there, but we're really not, right? Anyway, Sally will be going first, but let me tell you a couple of things before we get started. Fire exit, you don't skimp, right there, if you need to go, or the door you can make. What else? Oh, yeah, we've started doing question and answer sessions after the show. So we encourage people, you don't have to, but I think they've gone really well. It's amazing, you know. Pull out some chairs, you know, spend 15 to 20 minutes, whatever, ask some questions. Anything that the performance brought up that you're curious about, the performance itself, you know, what got people to write it, whatever. So that'll be after our final performance. Okay, let me just tell you about the one show that is happening now in March on this stage. Dan Hoyle will talk to your people. And I hadn't seen it till this Saturday, so I'm so glad I don't have to read it off this anymore. It's just such a good show. If you've ever seen Dan Hoyle before, he has this way of taking the most pressing social issues and getting to the heart of them through a series of characters. So there's, I don't know, 8 or 9 characters. And you see him up on stage, you think you're watching whoever this person is. Yeah. And in this case, it's a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of white people, to be quite frank, or mainly, and how people dealt with COVID. And particularly the Black Lives Matter stuff that came up, the whole issues of, you know, fairness and all the sort of issues that made a lot of us have to rethink who we are and our place in the world. And anyway, it is funny as hell. And it is really makes you think about things. Anyway, I didn't do a great job describing it, but Dan Hoyle is really a one-of-a-kind performer. Performs all over the country, you know, around the world. He is a talented guy. So the shows are selling out. Come check him out. Dan Hoyle, and talk to your people. He's here for April 16th. All right. Now, what you're really here for, our performers. Our first performer tonight is Sally Love. Sally Love Saunders, in Fireflies of Comedy. Sally's reactions to details of life can be very funny. She's often called the funny lady in her building and enjoys making people laugh. Sally is a widely published poet, poetry therapist, lecturer, freelance writer, and workshop leader. Her work has appeared in the New York Times, the London Times, and many other publications. It is Sally's absolute conviction that everyone is a poet. Please welcome Sally Love Saunders.
Oh, seems like just last week we were here before. What happened in 2 years? Was I in COVID? Well, I've been kind of tucked away in an old folks home, and I wanted to share with you some scribblings I did. I thought, you know, someday this will be over. Someday I'll be back at the market, and I want to tell them what I've gone through the last 2 years. I thought to myself, people should walk on the right lane at an old folks home. Old people with walkers take up all the room and they walk down the corridors, and they're so concerned that they're going to lose their balance that they take up all the room. So there needs to be lines. There needs street lines. And the elevators. Let me tell you about the elevators. The dogs pan. And then when you say, excuse me, they don't hear you. The people don't hear you. You go, excuse me. that's where I went ever since the last 2 years of my life. So it's good to be here at the marsh. Really good to be at the marsh. Back home at the marsh. Well, one of my faults, I realize, is I have no patience. I have no patience. I want more patience, fast. So when you're in the dining room and the waitress comes and says, "What would you like to eat?" You say salad. She brings you a salad, and then before you know it, the woman next to you is eating your salad. And you say, like, "That's my salad." And then another thing, after dinner, they like to order lots of food and drag it out. I think it's because they drink a lot. I want to tell you about a neighbor of mine. She's the garbage inspector. She goes down into the trash room and counts the garbage. And then she has all of these signs up about put this garbage here, put this here, put this here. Uses up a lot of ink. So then the maintenance man comes and throws it all together. Then there's another, I live right next to the trash room. Then there's another woman who's very athletic, and every time she has something to throw out, she runs to the trash room, throws it out. I wanted to practice social distancing with her. Meanwhile, just going to the garbage room was her social life. So when I saw her, I would stand back because her mask would always have it off. I have another neighbor who's happy to come over and take anything I don't want. It's like having your own drive-in Goodwill. And then there's the one that's looking through the peephole all the time. She looks in the peephole and walk by and see this eyeball going like this. Well, when I was interviewed there, they said to me, you know, we have the right to have you leave if you ever misbehave. Like if you ever run down the corridor without the clothes on, you gotta leave. So one day I was expecting a friend to come over, and I was running late, and I wrote a sign saying, "Door unlocked, I'll be right out." So I go to put the sign on the door, right in the shower, getting crunched for time, and the door is slammed shut. So there I am. There I am. Luckily, well, I'll never forget that moment. So I've been sitting there, you know, getting back to the marsh, I'll tell all these stories around, and I hope you all had more fun during COVID. Yeah, that was really something about that. But I put scotch tape on it, and went away and shut the door. So I didn't know who to call. Should I call the garbage collector? Or she probably informed me that this council would get thrown out. Who to call? Who to call? Well, now I want to talk about some other experiences during COVID. There are people that I've called during COVID that I say, "How are you?" And what have you been doing? And they go on and on and on. But they've cleaned up their closets. They've lost 50 pounds. They have become great artists. They've been hiking and meditating and reading and. I hate these COVID stories. I know that there are piles of paper that I shouldn't have gone through, and closets that I couldn't use cleaning, and tons of exercise that could have been done. But I have not been a COVID star. I want COVID-19. So now all the projects that should have been done, I could do, right? I mean, those piles are still there, the closets are still there. So they still have been done. Anyway, the piles are getting higher. So, and then tell you about something, eliminating my clutter. When I was a kid, I had a lot of excess energy. And my father would tell me to go run around the house 3 times to get rid of all this energy. My mother's nickname for me was Moss. My nephew squirted on me when I changed him during his early years. During COVID, we did a lot of family zooming. So I felt very connected with him. We've been going down memory lane. And I kept wondering, should I tell him that all this honey squirted in my face or not? And then I want to tell you about a friend of mine who spends more time getting ready to go to the hairdresser than she does at the hairdresser. She does her hair with those old-fashioned rollers and the hair dryer and the spray. I said, what are you doing all that for? She says, I want to look nice when I go to my hairdresser. I went to a wedding where a man married himself. He walked down the aisle by himself. He danced motions, glorifying himself. He promised to obey himself, taking all others. He promised to love himself, and he registered gifts to himself, like spa treatments, credits to his favorite restaurant. On the subject of gift giving, I have many nice friends, and when they have birthdays, I give them gifts. One friend gives me gifts, even if it's not my birthday. She goes on the last cruise of the season because the gifts at the stores in Alaska have huge discounts on the gifts them. She also collects all the freebies on the cruises, wraps them up and gives them to me for gifts. Sometimes when she wants to get rid of something from her apartment, she wraps it up and gives it to me. So I've been doing the same thing to her. When I come across something I don't want in my apartment, I wrap it up and I give it to her. She's not refused, not even once. I'm wondering if what I give to her, she gives to someone else. I have a friend who's very controlling about what I say. And will not say to him. So I'm going to see if I can get an app on my phone and get the talk he wants from me. I was traveling from staying with a friend, and we kept getting stuck behind a caravan of cows. And I said to my friend, why don't you drive around the cows? Here's reply was, I don't know about cow etiquette. Cow etiquette. Well, I have a driver who's very strict about where he takes me. And I like to go ice cream parlors and bakeries. And he doesn't send me stress. So now we get him to stop at a bakery and say, Betty, you can either take me to get pastries or to the emergency room. Your choice. So, one time I was in touch with a man on the internet on one of these dating things, and he said he wanted me to tell him my fault as a way of interaction. I said, My bolts are saved for my clothes drugs, not a stranger. Whoa, I traveled heavily. My bag laid going in place. I had an appointment, went to the waiting room. My friend had to go back to the car, get one bag and went behind. Eventually, the nurse called me in, and I walked off. My friend said, "Don't you want your bags?" Well, I had made a list of what I needed to talk to the doctor about, so I didn't need bags after all. Staying in a high-tech hotel. Lots of my young folks dress like cowboys and homeless. I cannot work the office machine. We might need the PhD in engineering to turn on and off the lights. What about the phones? I had to ask the operator how to turn off the phone. High-tech hotel. One of my favorite activities in traveling is eavesdropping. I position myself beside people with dramas going on. Might perhaps be behind the newspaper before. You know, I scale around. I see some drama. I would think he's drama. It's better drama than paying a lot of money and going to the theater. A couple across from me, both reading newspapers, he said to her, "I want a divorce." There was silence. Then she said, "Okay." Then silence. Then he said, "I want it soon." She turned over a newspaper page and neatly folded the page. Neatly folded the page. Silence, silence, silence. At the airport. You know the part where you have to drink up all your water from the bottle and toss it in the big trash at the airport before you to security? Well, I would like to get a very large sized bottle of water and put great tissue paper to mimic the water and then chug along with great gusto. And I mean very great gusto. With a huge bottle of water going up and down with long strokes. Then, with a strong dramatic force, toss the bottle in the wastebasket for water bottles. Not allowed on the plane. There's the part where security wants you to take off all your clothes. Remember that? That's part of your clothes. Oh, that take off your coat and sweater. All right. Lo and behold, a comical woman started pretending she was a striptease artist. That, a younger woman actually went through striptease motions with her clothes. This brought the line to a halt. Oh, I get a kick. Getting off the airplane. You hear some say, "Oh, Mildred, I'm sorry I have to call, but I'm in bed with the flu. And I'm getting better." Or, "Susan, I'm so sorry, but I've had to work late tonight. I can't see you." "Oh, Genevieve, I had to go to the hospital with my mother." He's probably a great sport. Oh, here's the money. I have to make my way over to see and listen. I was on my way to go out of the country, waiting at the entrance of an airport, and there was a woman who was obviously annoyed, pacing up and down. In rushes the man all of a sudden. They spat about how he was late, and he said he'd forgotten his passport, and not enough time for him to get it. Apparently, They lived outside of the city. And it was Friday afternoon, and there was a lot of traffic. And she said, well, I'm not mine, so I'm going. Come on, turn your heels and walk away from the processing area. As soon as she's out of sight, into the boarding processing area, he pulls out his phone. And this is what I heard. Mildred, she's gone. And I'm all yours for a couple of weeks. I'll make a Rolodex of excuses to be marketed. I wanted to tell you about this new book, which just came out, called Sally's Castle. I'm real proud of it. One of my students, Joy Cogan, put together this book of my poems. And you can get it on Amazon. And I'm going to read you one. Tech topic. So I wanted to walk the walk of technology, reaching for it, smiling. And then bam, I tumble flat on my face. Tech Daddy Greg helps me up and steadies me, and I try again laughing, only to fall and cry. Stop my feet, but nearly try again to do the tech walk. Someday I'll be grown up tech walker. But for now I'm a tech talker. And I put flyers as you come in about a poetry conference call I do every month. It's free and it's a lot of fun. It's, all you have to do is dial some numbers. And then for an hour, I'll share you some of my poems. Gosh, it's so good to be with you. It's like being home. It's like, whoo, to be in the marsh again with all you wonderful people. Thank you.
That was the one and only Sally Love Saunders. Another round of applause. Thank you, Sally. All right, we are not done. Our next performer is, oh, I was not going to mess your name up.
Actually, just do it right.
Got a beard on?
Yeah, there's an S, yeah.
Oh, shoot.
It's not, there we go.
Carlos Gavilas. I try. All right. Half Italian, half Spanish accent. All right. Anyway, Carlos is here in with a show called Racially Ambiguous. It's a humorous and reflective commentary on not being able to fit in as an immigrant to either the American or Hispanic cultures, while also looking to grow a family, raise daughters, and become a part of the community. Carlos is an essayist and storyteller who recently placed second at the 2021 West Side Stories Grand Slam. Yeah, and now please welcome Carlos Gavilas in Racially Ambiguous.
Thank you, all of you, for braving the weather. 70 degrees in the sun. Really hard. Plus, daylight saving time. So you guys are all prepared. My baby was acting fussy, so I bent at the waist and I told her, I only have room in my life for one crying baby. And that is your grandmother. I apologize for this hateful joke to my daughter, but before you judge me, you have to know that I have one of those calls that you need humor to cope with. Do you ever get one of those calls from your parents? You are grateful that you exist, and at the same time wonder what made them believe they were capable of raising kids? Do you ever tell them that they need to get therapy, and you tell them so for years? Isn't it such a drag that eventually you have to get therapy because you need to deal with them not getting therapy? Maybe that is what therapy is. Accepting the world refuses to be the warm hug we all want, need, and crave. Insisting instead of being the old knucklehead of its own. Tell yourself, read a book on it, listen to a podcast, take a run, I'll meditate for a sunrise. I will consider writing, maybe oversharing. I will even ask for advice from the people sitting next to me on flights, asking for life advice. Oh, yes, I will. Because I'm looking for that silver bullet that will grant me access to nirvana. One day, I'll get a call. Cut emotional lessons. Full absence. Oh, man. I need therapy. Man, I need therapy. And you'll start the search for that perfect therapist that gets you. You will come to find out that there are no therapies available because they're all taken. And you have to know that by the time you tell yourself, oh man, do I need therapy? Man, I need therapy. It's already too late. Because you've postponed it for too long. Now you're going to need it for a very long time. You cannot unpack decades of trauma in 6 sessions. You cannot expect that from your therapist. We're only human. We're all flaws too, because why else would they become therapists in the first place? Find someone that, by a miracle, is spot available in 6 weeks. You have grown to distrust the world. The only thing you can think of is, you have no responsibility at all. There's a pandemic going on. Honda won't be emissions free until 2050, which is 30 years too late. Dr. Seuss is racist. That's why you need a therapist now, when you don't need it. Pay the waiting fee, and you go sit at their office. You just look at them. You have nothing to say. Maybe you talk about the weather. Maybe you talk about your plans for the week. You keep paying and you keep going because one day, maybe years, maybe decades later, of paying and getting nothing in return, you will ask yourself, oh man, do I need therapy? Man, I need therapy. And you will have access to therapy because you plan ahead and you pay for your mental health bill in the same way that you pay for your water and your electricity. And if you didn't follow my advice, then you only have yourself to blame. And you can work with that with whoever you're able to find. We need it. We need it because there's just so much going on in the world right now. You see African Americans in the spotlight fighting for their rights. You see Asian Americans in the spotlight fighting for their rights. But you don't seem to see that many Latinos in the spotlight fighting for their rights. That's because somewhere in the world, Latinos are fighting with their moms. It's true. Being Latino is hard, but mostly because of our moms. If you're Latino, you have snapped at your mom's privacy trespasses and treated her like a telemarketer. I do not want what you're selling right now. Remove me from this list and never call me again. That's of course followed by weeks of self-flagellation for having lost her temper at your mom, which she gave you life. And of course your mom doesn't help because she's able to hold the grudge for the longest time. Every time you go to apologize, she snaps at you. Debe haber sido una mamá terrible. You must have been a terrible mom. Eso es lo que recibo por quererte tanto. This is what I get for loving you so much. And of course my mom's favorite, como mi mamá solía decir, cría cuervos y te sacarán los ojos. Like my mom used to say, raise crows and they will pluck your eyes out. The relentless expectation Asian parents have on their kids are incapable compared to what Latinos have to go through, primarily because there's no target. Asian kids have a target. An almost impossible target, yes, but a target nonetheless. If you're a Latino, your accomplishment don't matter, as long as you move to the house next to your house. And whenever you're not in your presence, you must bridge that distance by being on the phone with her all the time. That's not a target. That's abdicating control over your life. Of course, it's not all bad, and that's why we keep going back. Latina moms are also their kids' biggest fans. It is the single source of my unfounded and unearned self-esteem. If I ever post a picture of myself on Instagram, I don't have to worry about the likes or the comments. I know that if my mom sees it, she will like it and very likely comment on it. It's me on it. Mi hijo es muy hermoso. Oh my God, my son is so handsome. She will complete it, 20 hearts, and the face emoji with all the hearts swirling around. Yeah. In the end, it's a good thing that we have the kind of relationships we have with our moms because they taught us that relationships are complicated. Like you can love someone and still block the numbers in the nights that you want to have a nice, quiet evening. Isn't that what love your parents is all about? Or loving it? My life is comprised of all these weird moments. And do you ever feel like you're part of an experience that somebody else is architecting for you, but you're not even on the joke? Like you're part of these virtual reality sorts. I can tell you, for example, I had this opportunity to kill a man, and I didn't do it because I found it amusing. I had a green light to turn left, and as I started going, I saw him. He floored his motorcycle and he ran his red light towards me, making me stop so I wouldn't kill him. And I didn't do it because I thought it was amusing. And calling his vehicle a motorcycle is generous on my part because it wasn't bigger than my daughter's tricycle. It looked more like a Chihuahua with oversized tires. It was just amusing to see this guy assert his masculinity on a bike. Like I said, it was amusing partly because it was inherently funny, and partly because it was relatable. I also grew up on Mario Kart. Mario Kart is a single video game that I played across consoles, and I still go back to it to this day. Maybe he was high on mushrooms, and that's why he thought that he could use the lights. Maybe he held the accelerator down as the light turned from red to yellow, and he felt entitled to a super boost. I know that he knew that he didn't shoot up like a rocket because I was able to lock eyes with him while he pulled stunts. It was the slowest, most awkward stunt I've ever seen. People say that video games, as we control video game characters, they influence the way that we perceive the world. And I don't know that I believe that. I spend countless hours blowing out people's heads in video games. I never had a desire to pick up a gun or a martial art or even finish an Iron Man. But the stunt that little Kamigo pulled made me reconsider my position. Now, we only associate virtual reality to technology and computers since the 60s. But before that, philosophers used to say that the lessons that people around us teach us, in a way, are internalized, and they help us create our worlds. So becoming a virtual reality of sorts. And the best example I can think of is our parents' voice. When I was in Colombia growing up, if you were about 15 and you looked old enough, you could actually go to bars. So when my sister turned 15, I actually wanted to invite her and show her around. I was invited to a foam party, and I think about it right now. I think foam party. Sounds gross. But when I was 18, it sounded really cool. So I asked my mom if we could go, and she let us go. So a bunch of us, and my friends and my sister, just had a great time dancing to electronic music in the middle of this dusty and sanitary phone party. By the time we had to leave, no taxis were picking us up. we were soaking wet, and we had bubbles just coming out of our ears. And that's without taking into account the bacteria we were probably farting around. We had to walk to a friend's house, and from there we had another friend's dad come pick us up. We jump on his pickup bed, and he delivers us one by one. We were the last ones to get to our house. When we got there, the porter informed us that my mom had left furious looking for us. When she came back, we saw her. We saw her outfit. She was wearing PJs and shorts and flip-flops, curlers in her hair. She wasn't getting furious, and she grounded us for a month. And I thought that was the end of it. On Monday, when I went to school, I realized that wasn't the end of it. A friend of mine was still there when my mom showed up. She burst into the club, and she told the DJ to stop the music and to call for us by first and last name on the PA system. Then she went to the bar manager and said to turn on the lights. Now, I don't know if you know this, but flip-flops, foam, are not sympathetic. My mom just stumbled from room to room, calling out our names. That experience and the embarrassment I felt that morning scarred my brain. Whenever I was at the brink of violating my curfew, a miniature version of my mom, with her flip-flops, with her PJs, with her shorts, with her curls in her hair, just materialized in the back of my head. I took control over my behaviors. Since then, I am convinced I am my mom's avatar. But even experiences like that will trigger my nostalgia. I'm about to be in this States a little bit longer than I was. And I don't know when it's going to happen. It just happens. Like when I'm on the beach, I grew up on a beach now, so when I'm on the beach, that kind of triggers some of my memories. I was in San Diego. I was gliding, swimming, and I felt the water just gliding to me as I was swimming towards the open ocean. And as I was going, a sound distracted me. It just sounded like a seagull was walking my name. I just knew I couldn't keep going without finding out if such a supernatural creature actually existed. I stood and I looked up. There were no seagulls. I turned around, short, and I could see that it wasn't the seagulls walking my name. It was a person, and it was my mom. From the distance between us, I could see what she was shouting. Carlos, in the shallow. Swim in the shallow. Since we were young, my mom always insisted that we swim in the shallow end of the ocean. I walked back to where she was. I saw a few teenagers walking by, curious to see what was happening. When I finally reached her, I said, turn around and leave me alone. I'm 33 years old. My mom always perceived everything as a threat to our safety. Once, I was invited to hear a pitch on a magical juice that would eradicate cancer from humanity. I was very excited. I took 2 buses to get to the pitch, and I found out that to get in at the ground level, I needed to buy 27 boxes of it and invite all of my friends to do the same. Nani juice wasn't just a juice. It was a juice and a multi-level marketing scheme. Disappointed, I took the same buses back and I was way behind schedule. Back in the 90s in Colombia, I had no way to tell my mom that I was running behind. When I got to my house, 5 of my friends and 2 of my uncles were there with somber faces. I had a sinking feeling in my stomach. My mom had summoned all of them there because she was absolutely positive that I had been kidnapped. The police was already on notice, and had I not shown up, they would have been released into the city to look for me. Now, I wish I could tell you that was the last encounter my mom and I had with the police. Once I was driving through Petaluma and I was talking to her on the phone. I came to a stop sign and I pulled what is commonly known as a California roll. Now, I don't know if you know this, but California roll is not only the sushi roll with the fake crab. It's also what you call when you come to a stop sign and you pretend to stop, but you don't, and hope really hard there are no cops available or around. And in my case, I wasn't solo. I was pulled over, and I was very worried having pulled over. My car paperwork wasn't in order. My car registration had expired, and I was in the process of transferring the title to my name. I told my mom that I would have to call her after I talked to the cop. I hung up the phone, I put it on the cupboard, I lowered the window, and as the cop reached my window, I could see from the corner of my eye my mom calling me on FaceTime. The phone, with a mind of its own, just answer it. Now, I could see from the corner of the eye my mom with a crazed face, pained look, just waving a piece of paper frantically at the screen. Mr. Policeman, I am the owner of the car, Mr. Policeman. I am the owner of the car. Look at the title, Mr. Policeman. I have it right here. Look at the title. I have it right here. Now I know for a few minutes. Now, Mr. Policeman, listen to the whole thing. I know what they say about cops and sudden moves. So I politely asked the officer, is it okay if I pick up the call and block my mom's number for the rest of my life? Mr. Policeman gave me the go. And shortly after that, he just let me go. Realized the only crime I was the only crime I was responsible for was DWS, driving while smoking. A few years later, my first daughter was born, and I held her in my arms, and only then I knew how much my mom loves me. Makes me love her that much because it took me 35 years to know how much she actually loves me. I also know that I might never be able to love her as much as she loves me because that kind of love is only reserved for a parent to feel for a kid. I will show my daughter that same love. I will not embarrass her in front of her friends. And I will not call the cops when warranted. But I cannot make any promises. I'm only trying to protect her. Even if it means asking her to swim in the shower when she's in the boat.
Another round of applause, please, for Thomas Padilla. I think we should schedule a night here sometime, Alexa, where we have sons telling mother jokes and mothers telling sons jokes. We have both. I don't know if we've ever had it on the same night. But anyway, good stuff. But we are not done. Our final performer tonight, no, I'm on the right page. E.G. Phillips, aka Ducks with Pants, will perform selections from his upcoming album, Alien from an Alternate Earth, including the Octopus song, Ode to the Wild Horse Cafe, Braveheart, Luna, and Till We Have Faces Again. E.G. Phillips is a San Francisco-based songwriter who creates lyric-driven songs with his own special blend of whimsy and cinematic imagery. Please welcome E.G. Phillips.
Well, good evening. My name is E.G. Phillips. I'm a songwriter. I'm sole proprietor and a last sole member of the fake band Ducks with Pants. Fake band is a sort of novel marketing concept, the mechanics of which someday I will be able to articulate fully. But suffice to say, it is what is responsible for all the ducks associated with my brand, including my website, duckswithpants.com, and my social media handle, @duckswithpants. I have a new album coming out. It's called Alien from Melted Earth. Those of you who are corporeally present got to hear the full band version, and I will be subjected to the first song I'm going to play sits at the intersection of the Venn diagram of a Stephen Sondheim musical, a jazz cool ballad, and octopus. It was a song that was inspired by Cy Montgomery's The Soul of an Octopus, and it is appropriately entitled The Octopus Song. From your point of view, it must be a wonder I somehow managed to survive. I don't have suckers, I can't change colors to instantly dominate the skies. Perhaps this ancient notion is not so absurd. You're not from the ocean, much older universe. You slip through the cracks between worlds, now you cannot return. You're an alien from an alternate Earth. You're a curious one, having got personality. You'll swim up and greet us when we open your tank, or you'll squirt at me. Perhaps this ancient notion is not so absurd. You're not from the ocean, but a much older universe. You slip through the cracks between worlds, now you cannot return. You're an alien from an alternate Earth. Consciousness arises from a series of parallel but independent processes constructed in the moment. It's a useful delusion, not a disease. One day you're cured of what the mind's drift off into the oblivious sea. As for sleights of hand and multitasking, you've got the humans all beat. With one arm you stole the fish bucket, occupy us with another three. Perhaps this ancient notion is not so absurd. Not the ocean, but a much older universe. You slip through the cracks between worlds and cannot return. Alien from an alternate Earth. We've built an environment more suited for you than it is for us. This infinite division of our attention is not something to which I'll adjust. You grind the gems of paradise, they become worthless dust. I was captain of the ship, now I'm playing for tips on a posh hotel. I'm the wallpaper, I'm the jukebox. I'm also the wishing well. Perhaps this flight of fancy is not so absurd. I've gone and slipped through the cracks from another universe. Slip through the cracks between worlds, I cannot return. Alien from an alternate Earth. So these next three songs I think of as sort of a suite that runs together. I really like the order of them. They such, so I'm just going to play through them. The first is a song that was inspired by my sister's tales of a mockingbird she encountered while she lived in Riverside, California. The second song is called Ode to the Wild Horse Cafe. Words that do not appear in the lyrics at all, so you'd be wiser. And the third and final of this little run is called Braveheart Luna, which owes its title to some advice the good doctor would give his companions during intergalactic trails. I repurposed it for what is being covered by the latest release, a single I released on Friday, which got the big band treatment. Anyway, without further ado, if you start you off with the Mockingbirds. Somewhere after midnight, before the break day, carols cry from her slumber and forced wide awake. She curses the curtains for failing to mute. What she assumes is a car alarm. Only discovers the latest addition to the mockingbird's repertoire. On her way to the kitchen, making herself coffee, she passes a cage she regards as an empty. The silver home of a golden canary, long but less a love star. All because the song was once added to the mockingbird's repertoire. Nearly as malicious a mimic as his cruel cousin Cupid, who clearly deserves to be imprisoned. Plot. This magpie mating calls must be in it for the mischief. Why else would the mockingbird mock? Weary and walking through fields of sweet clover, carols perturbed by a well-known warword. She picks up a stone and nearly hurls it when out springs a murderer whose crime was he couldn't be distinguished from the mockingbird repertoire. Truck stop diner outside King City. She's sprinkling sparkles on unicorn lattes. A little bit of magic in the middle of nowhere. So glad she decided to share. I'm coconut cream pies with the whipped cream pie. I'm content just to pop by. There's a little bit of magic in the middle of nowhere. So glad she decided to share. Is she content just to be that? Does it ever get to be a little old hat? A little old hat. Background in the daytime TV, courtroom soap operas and Jeopardy, and this little bit of magic in the middle of nowhere. So glad you decided to share. First got a taste while getting a lift from nine who knows it from many a trip. It's this little bit of magic in the middle of nowhere. So glad you decided to share. Is this trip worth it? It has its moments. Out of the city, I'd call that a bonus. I'd call that a bonus. I pass her up there at the little winery. I got a ticket tonight, but I'm playing for free. It's this little magic, little nowhere. Reminds me of I'm going there. Scrolling through some, I found this brand new toy. This tune I'm composing gives me such joy. A little magic. It's come out of nowhere. So glad to be able to share. Glad to be able to share. Glad to be able to share. Illustrious brush strokes of candy sunset. Unstarted black night at its apex. All of this fading mode. Some fresh, hazy morn. Wonder which breath you happen to be brewing. But moonshine's gentle music. It's the totality of the eclipse. You're pining for, oh, brave heart, Luna, brave heart, Luna, brave heart, brave heart, Luna, brave heart, Luna, brave heart. For patience you must learn to endure. As terror to which you're inured. The earth which must be. The wolves lonely howl. At least as the watery shimmers. And the sky's pallid glimmers. And enrapturing little silence. Following clouds of an owl. Oh, brave heart, Luna, brave heart, Luna, brave heart, brave heart, Luna, brave heart, Luna, brave heart. It's okay for you to cry. It's okay to cry sometimes. Just know who's on your side. No matter how dark it may seem, messy, messy, la 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 la. Brave heart, Luna, brave heart, Luna, brave heart, brave heart, Luna, brave heart, Luna, brave heart, brave heart. We don't always make a sort of round and set capper, but not quite done yet. One more to go, because I'm really happy about the way this album turned out. It's got all these sorts of jazz styles, cool jazz, lots of and so forth. And this last one, big band closer. But when I hear this final song, I always feel like I want to go back to the beginning, which I think is the coup de grace as far as how it should be. So I'm going to try and recreate that experience for you without paying attention to that sound earlier. And I'm going to take you back to the beginning such that you have a sense of how I intend to experience the whole shebang. So this last song is a song that I wrote during the pandemic. It was inspired in part by the myth of Cupid and Psyche by way of C.S. Lewis. And of course, this recent husbands we all had to. It's called Until We Have Faces. So I walked them down the block, flirting with your skirt. You're naked as such a smile at me, and the waves down to her. Till we have faces. face to forget. Till we have face to forget. Kidnapped to a castle, high up in the clouds. You only live when you're invisible. That's all God will allow. Till we have face to forget. Till we have face to forget. My neighbors are doing fine. I'm that lucky and it's from the prospects on the line. If I'm bound to most my days, working hard, they change my ways. Love to lose the real best of time. Stuck into your bed, lit a candle to catch a glimpse. Spilled my wax by accident, now you vanish to the wind. Till we have face to forget. Till we have face to forget. Till we have face to forget.
Let's have another round of applause. Thank you for that. All right, so now it's time for our question and answer section. So let me see if I can help get some chairs back there. Carlos and Sally Love, come on here. There you go. I think I get a feeling like this music sounds a little bit familiar.
Yeah.
Well, wait, I think he is putting his guitar away. There he is. So, this is your chance to ask the performers anything that you feel inspired to ask them. What did their performance bring up in you? Were you curious about in terms of how they, well, create music or create comedy or create funny stories? Anybody want to be the first one to start?
David, is it? David? Always is right, sorry.
Or Carlos.
Carlos, sorry.
Sounds like David.
What? Yeah, it's very similar. What is, I missed DW driving while, I missed the C.
DWS, driving while smothered.
Smaller?
Smothered.
Smothered by mother?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
I missed that.
Yeah. Sorry, this is, yeah, so that's the smothered by mother, yeah. Play over that.
I understand.
I don't want to hog anything. I want to, and it's, people can be shy. Well, okay, I'll start. Let me just see if we can go down sort of the line here. Starting with Carlos. Where does your inspiration come from to create the work you do and your desire to like get up on stage with it? I mean, not everybody, a lot of people don't write, but if they do write, it goes out for people to read. You know, not everybody wants to read and to write and get up and perform in front of people. So where's your inspiration come from? What brings you here?
I write personal essays, humorous essays of things that I remember of my past or things that I'm going through right now. And my wife said, you should read some of these on camera. Um, and that was fun, but something was missing. So I started doing the story slams, where I take a lot of this material to. And the thread of race kind of come up because I was born in the States, but I grew up in Colombia, making my immigrant experience a little bit different than everybody else. So the part of the act you saw today is obviously mother, which is a central theme for everyone's relationship, but definitely for Hispanics. The mom relationship is what I think is very typical to what you saw in Stratford today, which I'm hoping was depicted with the love I have for my mom and the fact that it was a lot of funny, weird circumstances. So that's kind of why I decided to bring that. The racial ambiguity is the idea of living in the state and trying to understand what it means to be an immigrant, especially in California, where we're a little bit more protected from some of the more racist situations that people outside of California.
Thank you. Sally, what about you? What brings you to the stage? What brings you to write and want to perform?
Well, I love to show off. I'm going to show off all my life. And March is where I can be a show off when I'm not told it. When I was a kid and I would show off, my father let me run around the house. And in college, I was going to be in a play, and it was me and another woman in this play. And the other woman got kicked out because she was having an affair with the security guard. So I didn't get to be in the play. So this is a great opportunity for me. I like being here. I don't know how many times I've been here now. Probably about 5. And I love being here.
Well, we love
you want to
having
know
you.
what makes me right?
Yeah.
Well, I like to keep track of funny little things. You know, I'm really a poet, is really what I am. But then the little nuggets of just plain living, I like to kind of gather them like an old canner would and hold on to them because and put a light on it. Because a lot of life isn't really that funny. But when something is funny, I like to hang on to it like a fish. So does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. E.G. So you are the musician in the crowd here. So how do you get into music? What brings you to want to perform on the stage?
Well, I mean, always had, this compulsion, this disease for great things. Ever since I was a kid, it was great. Stories that I had my parents from speech bubbles for that I were abroad. And, had an affinity for music from an early age with, copy of Peter and the Wolf that we ground down the grooves of the old records. It wasn't really till college that I picked up the guitar and started playing, but as soon as I started to play guitar and learned what to listen to Bob Dylan songs, I also wanted to mess around and pick my own songs. It's one of those things where you get a hold of you and refuses to let go until it's done somehow. And they just keep working it and holding it until it feels like it's a finished thing. The sharing took a lot longer. I come to that around the late 15. But at a certain point, I decided that the only way people are going to experience these things if I take my naturally introverted self and just put myself out there, beyond the bounds, as it were, of the entertainer and performer, which has its moments, but it's not how I naturally.
Thank you.
I have a follow-on for you. Do you find that the wearing of a mask helps mask your introvertedness?
I mean, so there's distinctions, between the songwriter, the performer, and the entertainer. And, you know, to really be a performer, you know, versus the songwriter, you do need to heighten what you're doing to a certain degree. You have to become something that is a little unnatural in some ways. Maybe it's an accentuation of what's already there. But, you know, it is something that there's, I think, some consciousness of that, you know, I'm in a performance space. There's a whole other aspect of entertaining people, which comes to, you know, the sort of why you're doing it. You know, are you putting something out there, or are you doing it simply to get a reaction? And there's an interesting dynamic that goes on as the singer-songwriter field, because you know, a lot of times when people walk with music, it's something really, you know, that they know, like a lot of songwriters cover songs, but that's a little different than doing something that's a performance, where you're trying to draw people into your work, which is might not be their comfort.
Anybody else have anything, this is your chance. Yes, please.
All right, I have a question I have a couple questions. One for a couple of you. Sally, how recognized are you in your living? Because you're just very fun, bright, flashy, and like what's the dynamic of like you and your fellow neighbors?
So did you catch all of that?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I think that usually I'm so eager to get out of there. Like today, I was going, oh my gosh, they're going to ask me where are you going, and so I kind of walked up with this, and does that answer your question?
So,
But I have, you know, I told you I was a poet, and I get to read my poetry every 6 months there, and that's kind of fun. You know, I get up and sleep and read my poetry. I mean, I never tell them what the funny things that I'm thinking that make me laugh, that make living there more enjoyable. I can kind of put a funny lens on it, it's not so awful. But I don't tell them my life. But I read my poetry.
do you have an audience for it there? Do you have people that?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I do a conference call every month with people all across the United States reading my poetry, which is sponsored by the place where I live. It's called Social Gathering or something. And they do a lot of advertising. And I get people that listen to my poetry all over the country every month. I think it's really an advertising thing that they do, but I benefit from it. And it's fun to have all these people with all these accents listening to my poetry. We get people literally from every corner of the country. And then I'll read something and have all these accents focused on one feeling at once. It's a nice feeling, very connected feeling. I put flyers out there, and it's free, and it's easy to do. All you need is a telephone and an hour of your time.
Thank you. Next question, for Eugene. What made you come up with your name? That's a real thing.
It's actually ducks with pants. First of all, it's multiple ducks with the pants, not necessarily in them. This is actually a saving grace at times, believe it or not. So I'm really, it comes down to it's wordplay. I find words fascinating in terms of their meaning and how they interact with each other and the associations that come with them. And there are words that are inherently funny, and duck is one of those words that has that aspect to it. There was a vaudeville comedian, Joe Penner, who his whole routine was to go around and say, "Want to buy a duck?" And he tried it with a whole bunch of other stuff, but want to buy a duck with stuff. The duck is just inherently funny word. And pants has that same aspect. So I was just like, what happens if I put two inherently funny words together? Does that make that, exponentially funny as a result? And it is a somewhat odd moniker for myself in that a lot of my songs are serious, depressing songwriter songs, as one would expect. And so this is sort of my way of, just not taking myself too seriously. So I decided to do it. It's sort of stuck, and people assume I have a thing for ducks. I really don't. My mom actually. It does lend itself to some creative outlets as far as I paint, so I have a lot of duck-based paintings and all the artwork for my albums. Some of which you can see in the back, by the way. Along with the mailing list. If you are so apt to sign up and sign away all your information. Just but yeah, so it's tongue in cheek. It's not meant to be taken seriously, and sort of too serious.
Thank you. Another question.
Yeah, go for it.
Question for you, Carlos. Thank you for sharing your life story with that of your mom. I appreciate that, being a human myself. They asked for, I'm just curious. Yeah, just curious. Was your mom more upset with like the whole full party not coming home at a certain time? Was she more upset you not coming home, or was she like just in unbelief on the things that she like had to go through at the full party in order to try finding you?
Well, if you were ever late, was your mom upset?
Sorry?
If you were ever late, was your mom upset?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. So it was, probably a mixture of both. For most of it was a matter of you have to be here by a certain time, and if you're not here at that time, you're grounded for a month. And that was kind of like the standard length of a punishment. And I was grounded for a month every weekend. So, yeah.
Way to go.
Are you still grounded? It seems like that could add up.
I might be, my mom actually linked off on the Zoom, so I might be grounded tonight. So.
Oh.
Well, I was gonna ask that, so, it's not just the Latin community, actually, my parents did exactly that same thing. If my dad said, I'm gonna come sit next to you at school, if you do that, I knew that he would do that. So you wouldn't do anything, because he would be in the desk next to me at school. But has your mom seen the show and have comments on it? Does she laugh about it and find the humor in it now also, or is she still that mom that, what are you talking about me for?
You know what? That's a challenge even for me, right?
Yeah.
It's like, because I'm always very conscious that, I want to honor the story as the story happens without trying to take away from it by complimenting my mom by all the amazing things she does, because she does, we do have a good relationship, but these are like moments that are so ridiculous on its own, and if I was to take away my focus from that into this, then it will pull away from the story. So for me, I'm very conscious of trying to keep a balance there. And when she sees them, she can see the humor on them, but there's, and maybe your parents have the same thing. And I'm sorry, I cannot see your face, so I don't know. Would you mind telling me which ethnicity your parents are?
Irish and German.
Okay, so Irish, I know that there's depending on, well, all Irish, there's that sense of like propriety of how you portray yourself. So my mom is still worried about what other people would think, find the humor on it, but also be a little bit worried about how it's coming across it. And I always trying to reassure her that I'm trying to, you know, it comes out of all over the place. And, you know, I came out, you know, it all's well that ends well. So,
Carlos, how late was your mother?
what?
How often was your mother late?
You mean like picking us up and things like that? Late to everything? Yeah, she was late. Yeah. We had a joke, my sister and and that's another thing. My sister and I will get together and laugh over all these stories. And my mom can laugh, but now she's also starting to deny half of the stories. And so I'm glad that my younger sister was there to see everything happen. But my younger sister and I used to have a joke that my mom would call us on the phone whenever she was about to pick us up, and she said, "I'm at the corner." Well, which corner? Right? We never really knew what that meant. So yeah, she was up late.
I think there was a question over there in the front row, or no? Maybe not. I thought I heard someone start to speak before. Okay.
I just had a comment, Sally and Carlos, just a little bit, when you guys would sort of be over there, I couldn't hear very well. So just make sure that you're getting it out so that we can hear it. And we have other people over here, over there, whatever. Mostly Sally, but a couple times Carlos, it was a little bit like leaning forward, trying to hear what you were saying.
I just want to say, I did a program here called Lovely the Pioneer Inflation Fighter. And that was great therapy for me. My mother's dead, she's been dead a long time. But really, it was just so good to get up here and tell all these stories. My mother was just over the top. She was, I always said she was a cross between Annie Mae and Mae West. She was. And it was wonderful to have the opportunity to come to the march and I care about my mother.
I think this stage has seen a lot of stories about mothers and fathers and husbands and wives, and it's just been, a place for people to share all sorts of experiences, positive and negative.
Well, there's one woman that did one, my father was an Irish garbage collector.
Yeah.
And that went on to New York, didn't it?
Maureen Langan.
Yeah.
Yes, very, very funny. Very funny. Any last questions before we wrap up? Well, let's thank our performers again. And thank you to all of you for coming. It's great for the performers, it's great for the march. We missed this so much when we couldn't do it. Remember, EG has some material there for you to check out, and Sally has some flyers, so just check around the bar and the little table up here before you leave, all right? Thank you.
Also, April 22nd is Earth Day, which is also the release date for my album, so it's Alien from Alternate Earth Day. I'm very glad they named that date for me. So just be sure to check it out and also listen to the singles that are already included right from the release.
Yeah, and I want to say, during Zoom, I had the pleasure of having Zoom buddies that I never met, and I invited them to come tonight. And I don't even know who you are, I've never seen you. If they're here, please come up to me and tell me who you are.
Thank you.
Thank you.